YouTube, Dragon's Dojo Gaming here. I'm Andrew Sellers, and as you can see, I am about to make a deck profile for the one Shaman King deck I have right now. I have built one for Hao, Yo Asakura's younger brother. Hao is also my favorite character from the anime. I've watched the entire series of the Shaman King reboot on Netflix, and I've watched at least 15 episodes of the original series a long time ago when I was a kid, back when it came on Jetix. Actually, I think it was either Jetix or Toonami that it came on, but I've watched most of the original Shaman King, and I've watched the whole thing of the reboot, and I much look forward to the sequel of the reboot coming out. I really enjoyed the rebooted version. Anyways, onto the deck profile. Starting up, we've got your standard Hao ride line. This deck would not be Hao if it didn't have these specific units in the Hao ride line. Now for grade zeros. To start, I've got the Cray Elemental Overtrigger. I'm using it as a placeholder for now, but after Springfest next month, I plan on getting this card. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I actually plan on going to Springfest this year, and I will be going with some really good friends of mine. I run 3 draw triggers. One of them is a proxy of the Spirit of Fire draw trigger. I've got a 3rd copy of that coming in the mail. I run 8 crit. Obviously, I mainly chose this because it's a Spirit of Fire unit. And I chose both of these crit triggers for the deck specifically because... And I chose the Amidamaru crit for the deck as well specifically because its art just looks really nice. Like that glare is just undeniably cool. I still like the art on the Spirit of Fire crit more though, but both of these look really cool. Finally, for heal. Oh, and as you can see, I've got a foil version of both the crit and the heal. They both look awesome. They're both full art and they're sparkly. Now 3 copies of the one order I run in the deck. Strong foes in the way. So if I have one or more units with Hao in its card name, with 5 Grand Elemental Spirits as my rear guard. Well, you could place it on Vanguard as well, but you're infinitely better off having it as a rear guard. Just as long as you have at least 1 Hao unit and 1 copy of Spirit of Fire on board, you counterblast 1 and retire your opponent's whole board. This order card's pretty legit, if you'd ask me, because retiring your whole board from 1 counterblast and from having Hao and 5 Grand Elemental and having a copy of 5 Grand Elemental on board is pretty dope. 3 copies of Trick or Treat Jack. When this guy's placed on rear guard, you draw 1 card and then put a card from your hand into the soul. It's also searchable with a grade 2 I have in this deck, and I'll get to her later. So yeah, he's a good filter card. For now, I'm proxying these guys as the perfect guard. After Springfest this year, I plan on getting a playset of the perfect guards. 2 of the villain perfect guards and 2 copies of the Yo Asakura PGs. I want 2 of each because that villain on the PG is part of Hao's group, And I want the Yo one just because I like Yo. Now for grade 2s, 1 copy of both Turbine and Apacho. When Turbine's bound, you counterblast 1, choose an opponent's rearguard column that was in the same column as Turbine, and retire them both. And Apacho says when it's bound from rearguard, you counterblast 1 and put him back in your hand. And his other skill is when it's placed on Guardian Circle, you can discard a card from your hand and increase his shield by plus 15 for the battle. So if you choose to discard a card, his shield will become 20,000. If it's for something other than a 15k shield, that's a pretty sweet trade-off. Next up, 4 copies of Guybill. When Guybill's retired from the rear guard, you Soul Blast 1, then you choose an opponent's rear guard and retire it. He's there because he's a free retire. Next up, 4 copies of Matisse, the unit that searches out Trick or Treat. So when she's placed on rear guard, and if your Vanguard has Hao in its name, you Soul Blast 1, search your deck for Trick or Treat Jack, and call it the rear guard. And its other skill says if she's bound during your turn, you set her to the soul. Actually, if she's bound by a Hao unit. And now for my final proxy of the deck. 3 copies of Future King Hao. I've got Man of the Stars Hao. My buddy Ezekiel has 3 copies of Future King Hao for me later on. But Future King Hao's skill is once per turn, you Soul Blast 3, choose an opponent's rearguard and retire it, and then it gets a critical for the rest of the turn. So having him as a 10k, as an 18k beater with a crit, or a 28 beater with a crit, if you've Persona ridden, is really, really dope. Finally, for the grade 3s, 3 copies of the big man himself, Great Onmoji Hao. So, his first skill is act once per turn while on Vanguard. You counterblast 1, look at 2 cards of the top of your deck, call them to rear guard or discard them. His other skill says act Oversoul. Once per turn, you put a rear guard with Spirit of Fire in its name from your rear guard to the soul. Then Onmoji Hao gets plus 10,000 for the rest of the turn. And then you bind 3 rear guards. Then choose a Spirit of Fire unit from your drop zone and superior call it behind your Vanguard. And then that called unit behind Hao can attack for that turn. Mainly you want to do it with 5 Grand Elementals. And the monster of the deck himself, 5 Grand Elemental Spirits, Spirit of Fire. You only want him on rearguard, obviously. When you've retired an opponent's rearguard, you get to Soul Charge 1. If you end up retiring 2 rearguards while you have 2 of this guy on board, you can Soul Charge 4 times. And his other skill is when he attacks, you get it gets plus 2,000 power and a crit till the end of the battle, which is nasty. Like, come on, who can go wrong with 20k power and a crit for free? In my opinion, it's the best card in this deck, and it's the best card in this deck. Anyways, thank you for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe for more content, and I hope you all have a good day.